Hi, my name is Pam Killeen, and welcome to another episode of Circadian Reboot, where I like to discuss everything circadian. And today I'm thrilled to announce that on the show I have a very special guest. Her name is Kelly Bento. While she is also known as the Quantum Mom, she is a quantum dental hygienist who bridges conventional and biological dentistry with the science of quantum biology. A graduate of the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology and certified in photobiomodulation, Kelly's passion for light-based health grew from helping her brother recover from a traumatic brain injury. I'm going to put her contacts in the show notes below, so you'll be able to find her company below in the show notes. She is the founder of Soleil Well, a red light therapy company that US tests every device for flicker, EMF, and dirty electricity, builds with medical grade materials, and collaborates with Boston area photobiomodulation researchers. Her gear is trusted by clinicians and pro athletes across NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB. Kelly champions a sunlight first, circadian aligned lifestyle, treating red light as a smart adjunct when modern life keeps us indoors. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited about today's guest. Her name is Kelly Bento, and she is also known as the Quantum Mom, which I really want to talk to her about. But she has done so much in her life and is not slowing down anytime soon. So I did a short intro about you, Kelly, but I think the audience is going to want to know how and why, going from being in the dental industry, how did this get you into the quantum world? This is a fascinating story, so if you don't mind starting with that, that would be great.
Sure, yes. Becoming a mother almost 24 years ago, really, I think for a lot of us, that propels you into, I must create a healthy home and raise healthy children. So that was a huge point in my life, and then, unfortunately, a number of years ago, my brother suffered a brain injury due to medical error. And again, that was another point in my life that really threw me into needing to know the truth and needing to find the answers and needing to be able to help him when the best hospitals in the world sort of handed him back to us and said this is as good as it'll ever get, in that he would probably only have a 3 to 4 year lifespan with that level of injury. And at that time he was 47, and I was completely unwilling to accept that as the truth. And having already stepped into a bit of the quantum world and had been already listening to the whole light story by way of Jack Kruse and a lot of the interviews that he had done, more than a decade ago, and then understanding the brain is very mitochondrial dense, and how do we approach brain health. And that, of course, led me very deeply into the world of photobiomodulation, red light therapy, and how could I use that to help my brother? How could I use it to help myself, my family, my patients, people I loved? And it's been a fun ride.
Oh, yeah, it's ever evolving as well. And the circadian world is, the word circadian is difficult for people to wrap their brains around. The word quantum, I feel equally the same about. These are slow to integrate into people's consciousness because people want to take a vitamin, they want to take a mineral, they want to eat right, they want to exercise, but there's just so much more to health. And this was a real revelation for me, and I think it was for you as well. I heard you say that in another podcast, that there is just so much more that we need to consider, that we need to embrace if we want to expect to age gracefully, just basically be healthy. And this quantum and circadian domain, these domains are very esoteric for a lot of people, but yet the practice is really quite tangible, isn't it? It's not really that difficult to do. You just have to have the motivation and the drive.
And it is built into us intuitively. And we just, through modern living, have become so comfortable that we're not tapped into that innate intuition to be outside. Thankfully, as a young mother, before I really understood the value of all of this, I just intuitively knew that my kids should be outside. That's the way I grew up, you know, in the late 60s, early 70s, we were outside. We were not allowed to stay inside and to sort of numb out and watch television, or there weren't video games back then either. So I just always sort of intuitively knew that I wanted my kids outside, and my kids, essentially they spent their entire childhood running around the yard barefoot, naked. They were very tan, very happy, very healthy, and I'm just thankful that I followed my intuition on that and was able to have that be the base of their childhood. And yeah, we just need to get back to that.
Right. I mean, I look outside and there are children that live on my street, and I hardly ever see them outside playing. And I think I heard you say once, you know, the house is for sleeping, eating, and maybe going to the bathroom, you know, these kinds of things, right? Whereas when we were growing up in the 60s, this street would have been full of children playing soccer, hide and go seek, football, whatever the case may be, hockey, street hockey, whatever. I remember those days, just like you, Kelly, that the kids embraced the outdoors. It was hard, even on a really rainy or a cold day. It was hard to get the kids to come back inside.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny that you're saying that, because my kids, we had this conversation just recently where my kids feel as though they were the last to truly have that sort of neighborhood playing outside, running around childhood. Because there are my kids are in their 20s now, and there are younger kids that live on our street, and like you, they're not outside. They don't even know each other. They just sort of, I see them going to the bus and they shuffle up. I call it the zombie shuffle. They shuffle up the street just with their face in their phone. They never interact with one another. Whereas my kids grew up with all of the kids in the neighborhood. There was always a game. There was always some level of something happening outside every day, where it was football, it was basketball, it was soccer, it was tag, it was whatever it's supposed to be, in raising sort of these wilded little humans, and we just don't see that anymore, and that's unfortunate.
Now, I love your perspective, because you have a company, you started a company called Soleil Well, and you sell red light therapy products. But at the same time, you tell everybody, go outside first. Get your red light from the sun, from all of the wavelengths that you can get from the sun. So that shows me that you have a lot of integrity, and you really do want to see people get well. You're coming at this from the heart, from the soul. And I appreciate that about you, because I try to tell my clients the same thing, that red light therapy, you can use it if you're not outside enough. So maybe in the winter, you might use it a little bit more than you would in the summer. Or your life circumstances might dictate that, okay, you might need to stay indoors today and do a little red light therapy to compensate for the fact that you aren't outside. But it's so nice that you're encouraging people to celebrate the outdoors, to spend more time outside, and then choose the red light therapy products as a secondary measure.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely classify red light therapy as an adjunct therapy. This is not the primary. This will never be the primary. And I never say that. This is an adjunct therapy. Absolutely. There is nothing that will replace natural sun exposure ever. The unfortunate truth is that we live in a modern world that does drive us indoors. And therefore, it does make red light therapy a beneficial add. But the primary is always to be outside. People are amazed when I tell them how much red light therapy I do. I mean, obviously I have access. I have access to everything that I make. I do very little red light therapy because my life is designed around getting natural sun exposure. I spend basically between March and November, I spend at a minimum 6 hours. Typically through the nice summer months here in the Northeast, I'm outside 14 hours a day. I design my life that I can take advantage of natural sun exposure Therefore, I do not have a need for red light therapy. I would love for everyone to have the freedom to be able to do that, to design their life like that. The unfortunate truth is they don't. So that's when adding red light therapy becomes a very beneficial therapy to add, with no contraindication. Tremendous upside, no downside. So.
Yeah, and you have an array of different products. And I did a little digging into the history of red light therapy, because I do have a lot of red light therapy products as well. And like you, I prefer to be outside. But nevertheless, red light therapy has been around for like 100 years, and they were using it internally in the body to use it against things like prostate cancer and things like that. And even with eye health, they've been using red light therapy to help improve eye health. There are just so many different products and so many different ways you can use it. A lot of athletes, I remember looking at a red light therapy lamp from the 1940s or something like that was being used to help with sports injuries. So this is something that's been around for a very, very long time. And I know that you also use it with athletes as well.
Yes.
And that can help with strains and all sorts of things. But what is really compelling to me is your story about your brother and brain health, because that is a big theme today, Kelly, when you look at the rise of things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so on and so forth. I even saw on your Instagram page, you have a study saying that it might help with blood clots, which are also a big theme today. So it seems like there's some really critical health issues that red light therapy could help with. Maybe you can comment on some of these things.
Yes, at this point, there are nearly 10,000 published PubMed studies utilizing photobiomodulation as a beneficial therapy for nearly everything. Specific to the brain, being here in Boston, I have access to world leaders in photobiomodulation research and practitioners from Harvard, Mass General, Spalding Rehabilitation. All of the heavy hitters in photobiomodulation are here in Massachusetts. And there's one doctor in particular, Dr. Paolo Cassano at Mass General. He is a photopsychiatrist. What he is understanding and uncovering using photobiomodulation for the brain, and he has openly said that photobiomodulation used in all brain conditions, neurodegenerative, traumatic, and psychiatric, so covering all bases of brain health, photobiomodulation is the best therapy we have available to us today. Far exceeding any expectation from any pharmaceutical that they've ever developed. The brain responds beautifully to red light therapy without contraindication. So it's a really exciting time. In the past, all of the research regarding photobiomodulation, they weren't fully understanding the mechanism of action, whereas now they're starting to understand, and they are understanding that it's acting on cytochrome C oxidase and therefore acting on the water network within the body. So I fully believe that this next 10 years in the research is where we will really dial this in, and it will become widely known, the benefits and the full mechanism of action. And I firmly believe that the next 10 years in the research of photobiomodulation will be just the most exciting time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And so you have been using this too on your brother, who had a brain injury, and he's thriving quite well, I heard you say in a recent podcast. And now, are you using the red light therapy on his brain? Like, are you using it directly on the head?
We're doing more systemic, so that's one of my my double panels. I have my brother using four big panels, so essentially it's about the size of an entire door. So we're putting a lot of power, a lot of red light into him due to the lack of mitochondrial density and power in his brain because of the injury. So we're getting a lot of light into him systemically, and we've been able to really combat a lot of the downside and a lot of the detrimental effects of having a severe brain injury. The unfortunate side of it is we'll never be able to have him. I shouldn't say this, because I do believe that the body has an amazing potential. So I'm not going to say that. Today, he is not able to walk or speak fluidly. He can answer questions. He can communicate, and he can express his feelings and his thoughts limitedly right now. But of a lot of the physical symptoms of having the brain injury, we've been able to really control and minimize, and I swear he is reverse aging. He's reverse aging.
Wow.
He's in his 60s, about to turn 63, so that it's been a long time that he's had this injury, and he doesn't age. He doesn't age. I think it's pretty incredible what we've been able to do, and I believe he will have a very long life.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be thanks to you and your digging. I mean, it's not just about red light therapy with you. I mean, you do a lot in the area of
Right.
nutrition, and I'm sure a lot of, everything down to breath work and meditation. I'm sure you're exploring a lot of different avenues, which we all should be. I mean, health
Right.
is work. I got sick in my 20s, and you can't just go grab at one modality. It's the whole system that you have to look at and work at. And so red light therapy is one big component, but we have to embrace others as well. So I want to talk to you about some of these other things that you've explored in your life, because you're very diverse in your background. And I'm really interested in speaking to you
Just
about...
very curious.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I mean, I know you talk a lot about Jack Kruse, and I've listened to dozens of his podcasts as well. I'm trying to get him on the show, and he's very hard to track down. But nevertheless, with your history as a dental hygienist, you've worked in the conventional world of dentistry and then the biological or the natural realm as well. And what is fascinating is the role that sunlight plays on our dental health as well. And I think you're the first person I've heard talk about this, actually, Kelly. And I agree with you about the fact that we're using too much dentistry to deal with our teeth. And I've always been leery about brushing the teeth and dental flossing and mouthwashing and all this sort of stuff. And when I heard you speak, I was like, oh, yay, she's confirming my fears around a lot of these things, that we're doing too much to treat our teeth. And one of the things that has been largely ignored is the role of sun exposure on our dental health. And I'd really love for you to elaborate on that.
Well, teeth are rather interesting, and they are derived from neuroectodermal tissue, and they are N-type semiconductors. They conduct electricity. The relationship of the upper arch and the lower arch, and when the teeth come together and they occlude, it creates energy. So I mean, teeth they absolutely fascinate me, but my feeling toward dentistry is the same. We've been conditioned culturally. We have been conditioned through medicine and through dentistry to feel as though we need them. We need, the thought of having children go see the doctor for well visits is kind of ridiculous, and in my mind, that we should be raising children to be healthy, and we should be teaching everyone to understand that we should only be utilizing medicine and dentistry on an as needed basis. We should be able to live our lives in a way that is conducive to staying healthy, therefore not needing intervention. So I I like to teach people to focus on the basics, focus on your redox potential, focus on your sunlight, focus on your grounding, focus on being outside, drinking proper water, eating the right foods, and you will not need medical or dental intervention. You will not need them. And so I like for that to be the basis, not focusing on fluoride and dental cleanings and x-rays and all of those things that they want to sell you to promote the industry that is very money driven. Let's just, again, rewild ourselves. Let's just be humans living outdoor lives, coming indoors when we need to, and you won't need what they have to offer or what they're trying to sell you. I don't rely on dentistry. I through living this way and through applying the, we like to call them quantum principles. They're basic human principles is what they are. They're basic human principles. By living this way, I do not need dentistry. I do not need to have my teeth cleaned because I do not build up any sort of calculus or oral inflammation or systemic inflammation where I would need to see a doctor or see a dentist. So when we focus on these ground level human principles, everyone will find that you don't need intervention.
Now you mentioned,
unless you let them touch you, the better off you are.
Yeah, I agree. Now you mentioned another big word. It's a bit intimidating, but it's the crux of the work that you do, and it's the word redox. And so in a nutshell, let's try to unpack that. So when our bodies are full of negative electrons, and there's not a lot of oxidative stress, the positive electrons, then you can be radiantly healthy. When the positive, or the more toxic, if you will, electrons take over, that's when you start getting degeneration. That's when you start getting symptoms, including cavities, fatigue, you name it. So essentially, you want to have a high redox. You want to have your body charged. And we charge our body through grounding. We charge our body through the sun. And when we're exposed to a lot of EMFs, that is something that interferes with your redox. And so I think in another interview you were talking about the differences you see in people who are around a lot of oxidative stress, where their redox is very, very low. And you can see, for example, more tooth decay. Obviously, diet will play a role in that as well. But I think we need to unpack that word redox because it is so central to the conversation that we're having right now. So maybe you can tell us some stories about what you've noticed as a dental hygienist where people are under a lot of oxidative stress, where they have low redox and therefore have a lot of health problems.
I love how Kelly Bento speaks about the human body and summarizes redox in the simplest way. Your body is a battery made of water, charged by light. So simple, so concise, yet so simple. We can teach that to children because it is so simple. And I mean, what I see in dentistry, what I understand of redox potential, of the environmental influence of a high EMF environment and what that does to the body as far as displacing calcium and things. I can see the oral representation. I can absolutely look in someone's mouth and I can see what I know to be true about the environmental influence. Always when I see someone that works in technology and they are on their computer, typically multiple monitors, in environments, whether they're working for the government or working in hospitals or working in a tech center, I can always see that represented within the mouth, which is really interesting. It just solidifies what I know to be true when I can actually see the physical evidence of what it's doing in the body. I will always notice when someone decides, or a doctor decides, to have a patient take very high levels of vitamin D, which is a very bad idea. It's a synthetic hormone of sunlight, which is the only way that we should be getting it. And yet we have conditioned the public to believe that you can take a synthetic hormone. It's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. You can take a synthetic hormone and you can try to believe that you're going to get the same benefit. I can always see the oral representation of that as well, by way of a lot of calculus buildup, which is a very bad signal within the body. When you have calcium going into places that it's not supposed to be, like into soft tissue, potentially into arterial walls, that's a dangerous territory for someone to be in. So there's also a little bit of speculation, although I'm sort of testing it out in clinical practice, that radiographically within the pulp chamber of the tooth, the way that it presents, it's supposed to have these little horns inside the tooth, and when one of those horns is blunted, and so it kind of appears almost like a little chair, radiographically, that's typically a signal of low vitamin D. And so I'm playing around with that when I'm looking at X-rays, and I'm just making a mental note of, if someone is in my chair and they're very tan and they're young and they have this vitality that they've achieved from good sunlight exposure, I typically see those pulp horns within the tooth appear radiographically. Someone's in my chair and they're very pale, they're much older, they maybe are not appearing to have good sunlight exposure, I can see that sort of blunting. So it's never been fully clinically studied to prove, but I do see that anecdotally. I do see that in practice. So I think that there is definitely something to that as just a little metric that I pay attention to. No one else is paying attention to it.
All of science is based on anecdotes, Kelly, so it's perfectly fine to have that observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you talk about the color of the teeth. I see a lot of people doing the tooth whitening, and I have some concerns about that. And it is natural and normal for our teeth to get a little discolored as we age. But I've heard you speak about the sun affecting even the coloration of our teeth as well. And I found that to be really fascinating. Maybe you can speak about that.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the teeth are semiconductors, so they're going to take that sunlight, take that UV light, and make that usable. So, probably one of the most interesting things that I have seen is my oldest son had a friend that had come to the house, a young person, a teenager, and they had very abnormally discolored teeth that immediately I picked up on, because that is not normal. And so I immediately dialed into that, and then was just very curious about what is that? Was that something in the development of the teeth? Was there something that disrupted the laying down of the ameloblasts, which are the enamel cells that lay down the tooth structure? So I became very curious as to why this person had such abnormally discolored teeth. And then I happened to see other family members that now the parents did not have discolored teeth. All of the children in this family had very abnormally discolored teeth, which caused me to again be very curious. And so I started to dig into that, and then in speaking with some building biologists, we sort of collectively realized that was something very bad in that environment that was causing the potentially a very high EMF environment that those children were growing up in, that was causing all of the children in this family to have this extremely abnormal discoloration to their teeth. So I said to my son, you are never allowed to go there. Do not go. You are not allowed. Whatever is happening within that environment, I'm not sure what it is. I don't want you there. So that was like a super interesting little little observation that I'm always just trying to like figure things out, like what is happening and what is causing that, because the body always wants to maintain health. It always wants to maintain homeostasis and health, and so things have to be pretty bad for there to be a visual representation of something happening.
Yeah, it could be something to do with, I've heard Jack Cruz talk about EMFs interfering with our ability to use vitamin D. So even if they are out in the sun, the EMFs might be interfering with their use of vitamin D, and that maybe has something to do with calcium uptake, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, because we know that EMFs do disrupt our use of calcium. So, yeah, it could be something to do with that. But and you know about fluoride causing fluorosis. This wasn't fluorosis. This was something different. Eh? Yeah.
This was not I know what fluorosis looks like. I see it every day. This was not fluorosis. This was something very, very abnormal. And certainly not that I subscribe to all of the narrative of things being genetic, but having seen the parents of these children and seeing that it wasn't present in them, but it was present in the children. And like I said, ameloblasts, which are the cells that lay down enamel, are highly, highly sensitive. They're highly sensitive to if the child spikes a high fever, it interrupts ameloblasts. So I knew just in observing this family that there was something happening within that environment that was not healthy.
No, it sounds, yeah, I see a lot of that today with our young people. I don't understand how parents aren't really noticing, because when I was a kid, when you were a kid, our peers were pretty normal, right?
Right.
And then now you see they're just breaking down at the seams. It's really sad to see. In so many different ways they're breaking down, right? Like it's, the situation has to turn around, and we have to get this information out one person at a time. And I know it takes work.
Right.
It does take work, and it does deviate from the norm. But you have to do this quietly if you're afraid about your neighbors judging you. But you've got to do it.
That's an interesting point. This is a grassroots effort, right? And I have heard people within the space say that people need to be highly qualified, and they must have these very advanced degrees in order to bring all of this information forward. I disagree with that completely. This is a grassroots effort. Any one of us has the capacity to influence the health and wellness of anyone that we come in contact with. Simple conversations, simple gestures. I mean, I do it with my patients every day that I'm seeing them clinically. I'm always opening the conversation about their environment, about their sunlight exposure, how much time are they spending outside. I do this a lot, especially with kids too, making them aware that they need to be outside. But this is, I think everyone needs to understand that they don't have to be a doctor to save someone's life. You can simply be a curious person that understands wellness and our connection to nature, and share that information with anyone and everyone that is open to it and that will listen, because you never know how what you say to someone is going to influence them. And you can absolutely, any one of us has the ability to influence the life and the health of any other person. We don't need doctors to save us. We need boots on the ground. We need soldiers in the communities sharing this information and getting this out there and educating everyone.
Yeah. I heard a Buddhist expression years and years ago. Man walks around asleep until he hits the depths of suffering, and then he wakes up. I got sick in my 20s. I was at the depths of suffering. I had to grab at everything I could to get my health back. And so people have to be very motivated to make these changes in their lives. And I've heard you speak about being uncomfortable. Well, it might be a little uncomfortable at first. Get up in the morning, watch the sunrise, maybe to get your sun breaks here and there throughout the day, to go to bed at a decent hour, wearing your blue light blocking glasses, stop using screens at night. Some of these things might be a little uncomfortable at first, but once you start enjoying really high quality restorative sleep and you see what that feels like the next day, really there's no going back.
Right. Yeah, you'll never compromise your health again once you actually feel human again. Once you feel that vitality. And then also by subtracting a lot of that out of your life, when you are exposed to it, you immediately recognize how offensive it is and how much your biology does react to it. My husband and I mean, I've controlled the light environment in this house for over a decade. My children have grown up. They've spent nearly their entire lives wearing blue blocking glasses. I've always been very mindful of always using incandescent bulbs and not LEDs in the house, and turning things, bulbs red and things at night. And so when we are exposed, when we have to unfortunately be exposed to, unbalanced artificial light, it is so offensive and you instantly feel it. Whereas most people that are just living this way, you kind of walk around feeling a bit crummy. You just have this like low level of feeling of being crummy all the time. So you don't feel it as the assault that it is until you subtract it from your life, and then you're exposed to it, and then you recognize like, oh wow, that light is really offensive.
Yeah. Now, do you do work with your patients, your children, on the breathing and mouth taping, things like that, to try and form the mouth properly? Do you go that far with your patients or your family?
I mean, that's probably the only area that I feel like dentistry is really having a positive impact is in finally addressing airway, and that it's a big issue. I mean, we've sort of pushed this narrative over the past 20 years to mothers to not give their babies foods that could potentially choke on, and now we see nearly every kid needs orthodontic intervention. That's not normal. That's not a normal adaptation. That's because we're not giving kids. Yeah. We're not giving babies hard foods to chew. You need those hard foods also to stimulate that piezoelectric energy from chewing, from clenching and biting on hard things that stimulate to the brain development, stimulate the full development of the jaw in the way that the jaws are supposed to relate to one another, stimulate proper tooth development. The entire facial structure starts to collapse when it's not getting that impact of chewing and that bite pressure. Yep. And the human bite is 2,500 pounds per square inch. I mean, that is a powerful. These are the masseter muscles are very powerful muscles. The tongue is a very powerful muscle. These are all things that are directly linked to full brain development, linked to airway development, that we've just lost all control of guiding mothers in allowing their babies to have this proper jaw development. My husband had all 32 teeth, perfect occlusion, never needed braces. My oldest son, same thing, all 32 teeth, perfect occlusion, did not need braces. My kids, when they were babies, we would give them rib bones at 6 months, and they would just gnaw on the bone, which is what babies are supposed to do. And now we're telling mothers, do not give them solid foods until they're a year old because they could potentially choke. It's a very bad idea.
Yeah.
Very bad.
I'm trained in the Buteco breathing, and so at night I make sure I'm nasal breathing, not mouth breathing, because the tongue is your retainer and it helps form your teeth as well, which is something so simple. But a lot of people make the excuse that, I have blockage in my nose, I can't do it, things like that. But that's, again, a sign of redox. You have to get yourself healthy. But a lot of people are opposed to mouth taping, and I suppose in certain cases, it's not going to be a good idea for some people. But I've been mouth taping for many, many years, and I love it. As a child, of course, I would have been a mouth breather, and on top of that, I had a terrible diet. So now it's no surprise to me that I had to get braces. I wish I'd known more about this when I was younger, but yeah, so I had to go the route. And then they pulled my wisdom teeth, which I've heard you talk about as well. I think you mentioned it as being a money grab. I said, yeah, I can see that.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's an insane money grab. And now we're not even giving kids the opportunity for those teeth to come in to see to just see is the mouth able to compensate and allow for room for them. It's standard of care to take a 14-year-old to send them off to the oral surgeon when they have just the tiny little bud, wisdom tooth bud, and have them extracted. Horrible idea. I am holding on to my kids' wisdom teeth. They're called wisdom teeth for a reason. They are directly connected to our connection, and they're supposed to be there for a reason.
Wow. And I heard you say as well that the tongue is the largest source of the UV light in our bodies?
It's the largest emitter of light. So the tongue is a very, very important organ, fully connected to the fascia, to your posture, to your airway, to your brain development. The tongue is a really fascinating organ that doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And it's funny that you say that, because that's sort of one of the areas that I really want to go deeply into to sort of tie understanding sort of all of this, and then tie it all together so that we then have a much deeper understanding of the importance of all of the functions of the tongue, that we just think of it as the tongue. We need it to speak, and we need it to chew. Oh no, it's much deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were talking with Carrie, I think, in another podcast about all the different ways you can diagnose people just by looking at the tongue, and some of this goes back centuries, many generations.
Chinese medicine had that very dialed in, very figured out. So it's really a fascinating organ.
I know you have a torch that you can use to help support your oral health as well, which I find really fascinating. And so when you have people with any kind of swelling or any kind of gum issues and so on, they can use your torch internally in the mouth to help reduce the inflammation, I gather.
Yes. So this is the torch. This is like the Swiss Army knife. This has a cult following, basically, because it is so insanely effective, and it's effective for multiple reasons, mainly the wavelengths in this torch. Some people have seen this torch and then they've decided to go on Amazon and buy something that looks like this torch. It's not this torch, trust me. The wavelengths that are in this torch are what truly make it really magical and just unbelievably effective. So this can be used anywhere on the body, anywhere, a leg, an arm, a wrist, a shoulder, a hip, anywhere on the body. But then I needed something that I could use for my dental patients, and so I developed the tip. And so this can go intraoral to treat any. This is the best tool I have ever used in dentistry for any oral condition whatsoever. Red light in the mouth is by far the most effective tool that is available. So you can use this anywhere in the mouth, even on the tonsils. I've had people report to me that they've used this tip placed it in the mouth all the way back into the soft palate, which has helped that sort of lax tissue of the soft palate that was sort of collapsing, causing an airway obstruction. They use this, help to tighten that up. Help that tissue to tighten up, improve their airway. Tonsils, my son had an inflamed tonsil. I put the torch on it. Things cleared up very, very easily. No need for any sort of antibiotic or anything like that. No anti-inflammatories needed. We used the torch, took care of everything. It can also be used in the ear. I recently traveled and ended up with a little ear discomfort just from air travel, and I used the torch, and it was just amazing how effective it was. But my favorite way of using the torch is intranasally, because then you're getting light up to the brain by way of the nose, which it has been shown in a lot of studies to be a highly effective way of getting light up into the skull, because through the nose there are no bones in the way. You can get light up right up there. There's also a major bundle of blood vessels, so you can also irradiate a tremendous amount of blood that is then going to be, those photons will be picked up and they'll be delivered systemically. So you do get a systemic benefit of treating yourself intranasally with red light therapy. This is, if you're feeling a slump and towards the end of the day, a lot of people get that 2-3 p.m. slump. Instead of a cup of coffee, do some red light up the nose, and all of a sudden, you're awake and aware, and okay, things are great. So it's also very neuroprotective as well. So a lot of the athletes that I am working with, I have them all doing some systemic red light therapy before a game, but then also intranasal red light therapy before a game, because
it helps with focus, that's everything.
Yeah, helps with focus, but it can, also can be potentially neuroprotective. So when you're walking into an arena where there's going to be a level of combat in competition, you want as much protection as you can possibly get.
Do you have anybody who's had a concussion who has done well using red light therapy? Because that's a big topic.
It's amazing. It's there's nothing that you can touch in concussion therapy that will give you the benefit that red light gives you. Without question, red light is the number one. And it's so interesting in concussion protocol and treatment, because the first thing they tell you is to get off all screens and to shut the lights off. So they understand in conventional medicine, they have a full understanding, and even the general population understands that light is an influence to the brain when you have a brain injury, when you have a concussion. Why do we not assign that same mindset that light is an influence on our brain across the board? We only sort of use that conversation when we're talking about a concussion, when they say, oh, you need to be in a dark room, you need to have the lights off, you need to stay off your screens. We need that all the time to maintain our brain health, not just in concussion. Like, that is, it just always, it doesn't amuse me, but it often makes me kind of laugh that, okay, we use that important information and that understanding of how light is influencing our brain and our cognitive function in that scenario, and yet not in a generalized brain health scenario.
Darkness is as important as light,
without question,
for our health.
Yeah,
but people don't have enough darkness at night.
Exactly. Yeah, that is an absolute health crisis as well. And we're headed into the darker days, and I used to really get sad, come August, when I could feel and see that the light was starting to change and that we're starting to head into those dark days, which can really be a miserable time of year. And now understanding the importance of it, right? So it's equally as important to embrace the dark as it is to embrace the light. And you will never get the full benefit of light unless you are fully controlling and embracing the dark. The two of them must work together, and neither is more important than the other, and both need to be fully recognized and fully embraced. And darkness in winter it's an amazing time. It really that's where all of the regeneration happens. So we can come into the spring fully regenerated. So mindset needs to change around the darkness side of it. So there's the circadian and the component of health, and there's also the infradian yearly component to the light and dark cycles that we really need to pay a lot more attention to.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a great note to end on. And I really appreciate the time that you've spent with me today, Kelly, and sharing all your wisdom. I'm so excited for your coming years. We were talking before we started recording about how we probably should both be retiring, but there's just too much exciting stuff going on right now.
Oh yeah, there's way too much work to do to retire. So I need to do all of the things that really excite me. And now that my kids are grown, I would not have ventured into running a business if my kids had been little. My focus when they were little was them and raising them. And now that they're adults and they're starting their lives and their careers, I now have the time and the energy and the passion to dedicate to this, which is really fun.
Now, I like to finish on one note, and that is if you could describe to our listeners, what is your perfect circadian day? What does it look like?
For me, that's every day, honestly, because I have the luxury of being able to control my light environment. So my day starts, I wake up right around sunrise, usually a little bit earlier. Wake up, put my blue blockers on, come downstairs. I get my Quinton minerals. I take a swig of that. I swish that around in my mouth to remineralize, remineralize my teeth. Swish that around for 30 seconds to a minute. Swallow that, and I immediately go outside. And I'm outside barefoot for as long as I can be. Some days that's 3 hours. And some days it's 20 minutes. So whatever the day looks like for me, that is the way that it starts every day, regardless of the temperature, regardless of the weather. In the winter, people have said to me, how do you do that in the winter? I love mornings in the winter probably better than the summer because we have a fire pit, and so my husband and I, we have morning fires. So we get up and we sit around a fire in the morning instead of sitting around a fire at night. And I tell you, it is like my favorite thing to do on a winter morning, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing. We have a little covering that we sit out there around the fire table, and it's a wonderful way to start the day in the winter. So that's my favorite winter hack for northern latitudes and spending enough time outside in the morning is get yourself a fire table and just have a morning fire. It'll change your life. And then, as much time as I can be outside every single day, I take every opportunity to be out there, no matter what it is I'm doing. If I'm working, I'm out there, reading, podcasts, everything that I can do, walking the dog. I spend as much time out there as I can. We always go for a walk at sunset. We're always very mindful. We know when the sun is setting throughout the different phases of the year. I usually will tuck my blue blockers in my pocket. We go for a walk at sunset. We have a direct view to the sun setting, which we love. We always take advantage of that. I kick off my shoes. I like to get my feet in the grass while I'm visually seeing the sunset, because there's great synergy in the magnetism, the change in the magnetism, and then the change in the light. So those two sync up, telling my body night is coming. You get ready to go to sleep, and come inside. We don't turn on the lights. Have my blue blockers on, and
that's your perfect day.
Go about our evening, and settle in. And in the winter, I'm ready to go to bed at probably 6 p.m.
Well, that sounds like a perfect day. Anyway, Kelly, again, thank you so much for all of your time, and you just keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show again soon.
Love to. Thank you so much, Pam. I appreciate coming on and meeting you and talking about all of this. It's all really fun. So thank you.
It's a passion. I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for taking your precious time to listen to today's podcast. For more information about my health coaching services, feel free to visit my website, www.pamkilleen.com. That's KILLEN. And there you'll find many articles, podcasts, and more information about my health coaching services. I'm also on Substack. And finally, to finish, here is the disclaimer. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. We are not licensed healthcare providers, and our content is not a substitute for professional medical diagnosis, advice, or treatment. For personalized health guidance, or if you have specific medical concerns, please consult a qualified medical professional. They can assess your individual health needs and offer recommendations tailored to you. By listening to our podcast, you agree to this disclaimer. We assume no responsibility or liability for actions taken based on the information provided herein.